Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. As a way of introduction, my name is Alyssa Cabanatan. I am a financial counselor for America First Credit Union, which means I get to talk to people about money all day, which is really fun. So some of the general services include, primarily we meet with our clients kind of one-on-one or as a couple, and talk to them about things such as budgeting, building credit, finding ways to pay off debt, and prepare to get into a home. In addition to the one-on-one counseling appointments, I also get to come out in the community and present as well. So I enjoy coming out and presenting, and I'm happy to be here today. I've been with America First for about 10 years, and then in this position about 8 years. Before this position, I also went to Utah State University, where I studied personal finance or family finance. Okay, so at America First, we believe in the importance of financial education, and we're here to help financial educators in, as giving as many resources as possible. One of the resources that we do have available includes lesson plans that on different financial topics. We have curriculum that you can look over that goes over some different handouts, PowerPoints, such as the one that I'll be going over today, and different videos. So these are all free and available for educators such as yourselves to be able to look over, use whatever you'd like, or you can also request to have someone from America First come to your classroom and present as well. So the topic I'm going over today, it's called Look at the True Cost of Independence. It's a combination of two of the different financial topics that we have available for you to use, and we thought it might be helpful to give kind of an example presentation of something that, this is one that I've presented to different high school students. And so we thought, okay, it has really great, useful information for adults, and will help maybe give some ideas of how you can incorporate some of these topics in your teaching as well. Throughout the presentations, if you do have any questions, feel free to stop me, or even if you have different examples of things that you've used in your classroom, raise your hand, let us know. We want to learn from each other as well, and I'm always happy to learn different things that have worked in your classrooms as well. So don't hesitate to stop me, and we can go from there. Okay, so we're going to be focusing on two different topics. So the first one will be credit and why credit is important, as well as the cost of moving out on your own. The first topic is credit score. Credit has a really big impact on your financial future. A little bit about the history of credit. So before there were credit scores, you might walk into a financial institution to apply for a loan, and it was up to the lender to decide whether or not they were going to give you the loan and at what interest rate. So let's say you talk to them, they really liked you, they might give you the loan at a good rate, or maybe if they didn't like you, they would still give you the loan at a higher rate or might not give you the loan at all. There wasn't really a standard way to for measuring risk. So they eventually came up with credit scores. Now, I'm sure this is a term that you have all heard before, but who can tell me what a credit score is?
It's a financial representation of a person's trustworthiness.
Yeah?
Or dependability.
Yeah, that's a great definition. I like that. So a credit score is a number used by financial institutions and credit card companies to determine the risk level, whether they're deciding to issue you a loan or a credit card. So it's they're more looking at, okay, how likely is the borrower going to pay back the money that I give them? It gives something also universal to base the interest rate on to help maintain fairness. Unlike before when it was kind of up to the lender to decide maybe what the rate in terms would be, it gives something universal based off that interest rate. It's kind of like also your GPA in school. Your report card has different subjects, different letter grades, and your GPA is that numerical number that summarizes your report card. Just like your GPA, your credit score is a history of how well you have borrowed and summarizes it into a nice numerical number for other lenders to look at. There are different credit scores available. However, the most common used one is the FICO credit score, so Fair Isaac Corporation. And there are 3 different credit bureaus. There's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. They all have a slightly different formula, so you'll notice that if you do look at your credit report from one bureau and look at your score from another bureau, you might see a slight difference in the credit score number, but they should all be pretty similar since they're based off the same information. There's also other credit scores out there, such as like a Vantage credit score. Different credit tracking companies use different scores. So if like Credit Karma is really popular, Credit Karma can be great for tracking the trend of your credit score. However, if you Credit Karma says this is my score, and you go in to apply for a loan and it's slightly different, that's just because they're using a different type of credit score. So you'll just have to want to make sure to keep that in mind when you do go apply for a loan, that it might be slightly different. Okay, so what does my credit score mean? Most credit scores range between 350 and 800, 350 being on the lower end, 800 being on the high. However, the highest score you can get is 850, so it can be even higher than that 800, but most of them range from about 350 to 800. It is also possible to have no credit score if you haven't ever applied for any credit, so you might get a 0 score, and it's not necessarily a bad score. It's just saying there's no credit history, you don't have a score. Once you start establishing credit, it will be in that range there. So a low credit score is below about 550. Low credit score means you might be denied a loan or a credit card. This reflects that maybe you've had some unpaid loans or some late payments, or maybe something more severe like some collection accounts or a bankruptcy. All of these could bring your score down to that lower end below about 550. A middle score is about 550 to 720, meaning you might get approved for the loan, but maybe at a slightly higher interest rate than some of the others. This could reflect that maybe you've had 1 or 2 late payments, maybe you have acquired a lot of credit recently, or even just applied for a lot of credit. All of those could bring your score down more to this middle range of 550 to 720. So prime, so you want your credit score 720 and above is considered a prime score. This one you'll get the loan approvals, typically at the best interest rates. This is where you want your score to be. Now, obviously, we all want to have that perfect 850 credit score, right? But keep in mind, this is something that takes years of good borrowing history to be able to get to that 850 score. So it's good to, especially when you are kind of starting out, to set realistic goals. Sure. Thanks, Lindsay. Set realistic goals of just trying to be in that prime score 720 and above. You'll still get the best rates, and that perfect score, could eventually come with time. Or even anything in the 800s is really good score. All right, so why does my score matter? What do you guys think? Why is having good credit important? Either from things that you've learned or things you've heard.
Can help you get a job,
Yes.
because prospective employers look at a person's credit score.
Yes, exactly. So that's what not a lot of people know. They think, okay, credit, that just determines if I can get a loan or not, right? Which is the main reason. But yes, employers, especially if you're working in finances, they can look at your credit and decide if they want to give you that job or not.
So I have a daughter and
Yes.
a son-in-law. and they were living in the basement of our house
Mhm.
for a couple of years, and we didn't charge them any rent, so they could save it, the money they would have paid for rent, they saved for a down payment on the home.
Yeah.
And they went to their bank to meet with the loan officer. And he asked for their social security numbers. I said, just a moment, I'll be right back. And they said, we want to get pre-approval because we want to go buy a house. And he came back with a big smile on his face. He said, you're combined as a married couple. Because when you get married, you marry that person's credit score as well as marrying the individual.
Mhm.
And he had a big smile on his face. He said, you have a combined credit score of 821, and they were at the time, they were 28 years old. And their combined credit score was,
That's great score.
because they've been paying their bills on time, and because we hadn't charged them any rent, we were living in our house for rent. But he said, you have a combined score of 821, you can buy any house you want to buy.
Mhm.
So they got a letter of approval, and then they went and shopped around for houses, and they bought their house. They've been in the house now for 10 years, and it's doubled in value here in Utah. So it's worth twice what it was when,
Oh yes, if they got into a home 10 years
they had a
ago.
low interest rate,
they're
and
lucky.
the house is doubled, and they're looking at bigger
Mhm.
houses now. They want to buy another house.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. So paying bills on time,
So-
especially at a younger age, they were able to get into that house.
So a good credit score can help you get approved for credit to buy
Yes.
to buy a car, to buy a house, or to maybe start a business, get a business loan. If you have a good credit score, it can help you get approved for credit faster.
Yes, great. So those go over some great reasons. So renting an apartment is another one of them. Different landlords can look at your credit, and if you have had bad credit, they might say, oh, I don't know, this is riskier for us to take on. You might not be able to get into that dream apartment, or car payments, not only the loan itself in getting the loan, but car insurance companies can also look at your credit. So you might be paying some higher rates if you have a lower credit score. And like you mentioned, job applications as well. Future employers can look at that credit. So credit scores can influence more than just getting a loan, which is why it is very important. All right, so now we'll look at how credit scores are calculated. So this is one that a lot of people have questions about. What determines my credit score? Credit scores can be somewhat complicated in the fact that the credit bureaus or FICO, in determining their credit score, they don't tell us their exact formula that they use in determining that score, but they do give us a good idea of the factors that go into it. So while we don't know exactly, if you do this specific thing, then your score will go up 25 points. We don't have those specific numbers, but we have a good idea of what determines the score and different things to work on. So the 5 main factors are payment history, capacity, length of credit, new credit, and mix of credit. So the number one factor is your payment history. So this is about 35% of your credit score. This is making sure you always have those on-time payments. It also takes into account if you've had collections or a bankruptcy, that kind of falls under that payment history category. The more severe the delinquency or the action on your credit, the more it's going to affect your credit. So if you had a 30-day late payment, that's not going to affect it as much as if you had, say, a 60 or a 120-day late payment. They also look at, how frequent are these late payments happening? Was this one time, one or two late payments, or did it happen a dozen times? So the more frequent it happens, the more it's also going to be affecting your score. They also look at how recent was the delinquency. Was this something that happened in the last couple of months? That's going to be affecting your credit more than something that, say, happened 5 years ago. So any delinquent accounts, late payments, those will stay on your credit for 7 years. A bankruptcy does stay on there for 10 years, but most things will stay on there for 7 years. However, the longer it's been since the delinquency occurred, the less it's going to impact your score. So everyone, makes mistakes, and so if you do have a late payment on there, just make sure to get current as quickly as possible and make sure to pay on time moving forward. Having a good budget in place can help to be able to keep track of bills, to be able to avoid going late in the future. The second factor is capacity. So this is about 30% of your score. So 30%, and the one we talked about before was 35%, right? So this is almost just as important as payment history. This one is looking at how much of your available credit are you using. Especially with credit cards, they'll take into consideration, okay, what is your credit limit, how much is available to you, and how much are you using. So if you are maxing out your cards or you have high balances, even if you are making your payments on time, this is negatively impacting your score. Experts recommend to use at least below 50% of your limit. So if you have a limit of 1,000, you want to try to keep it at least 500 or below. But if you can keep it 30% or below, then that will help your score the most. So this is one that I had someone just the other day. They had higher balances on some credit cards, but they had the money to pay them off and they were trying to build their credit. And they said, oh my gosh, I could have paid these off every month. I just thought I had to keep these balances on there to show that I'm using credit. So we were able to talk about, okay, no, let's get these paid down. That's going to help your credit improve because this capacity is almost as important as payment history. So oftentimes, oh yes.
The capacity, just if you're carrying a balance, so if you have $1,000 credit limit and you spend $900 but you pay it off, that doesn't affect it, does it?
It kind of depends on when they report your score, because let's say, they're not reporting your score daily, but let's say they report on the day your balance is 900. It's not.
Then it will.
Yes, then it's going to show.
Even though it's not due yet.
Yes. So then it's going to show you had a $900 balance and a $1,000 limit. Next month, maybe it would be lower. So if you're consistently keeping higher balances, that's worse than maybe just like 1 month it was higher. But it kind of does depend on when it's reported. So yeah, credit's funny because it's not really how good you are at managing your money. It's how good you are at borrowing money. So they want to see that you can borrow money and pay it back. So always keeping a zero balance might not help your score as much. It's not going to hurt your score to always have zero balances, but having some small balances and paying them off so you can avoid interest can still help your score there. So in general, you just want to be careful not to keep higher balances on cards in case they're reported on that day. Okay, the next factor is length of credit. So this is about 15% of your score. So this is the longer you've had credit that's been well maintained, the better your score. This is the one that we don't have a ton of control over. It's just something that does take time. When you are starting out, it might take about 6 months to a year after getting that first credit card or that first loan to start establishing a score. But then you'll start to establish a score, and then creditors like to usually see about a 2-year payment history before they start giving you some larger loans. With the length of the credit, they consider, okay, what's the average age of your account? What's the oldest age of your account? Which one's been open the longest? And newest account. So this is where, if you've heard closing out credit cards can negatively impact your credit, it's because, especially if it's been open for a long period of time, it's affecting that length of credit history as well as possibly that credit utilization from the one before. There's not as much credit that's available to you. So in general, if you can leave credit cards open, especially if they've been open for a while, that's typically better, unless they're charging high fees for not using them, or maybe you're just done with credit cards, they're too tempting to use. Might be better to close them out, but at least credit score wise, leaving those open for a long time will help. And then also with looking at getting new credit, actually we'll look at that. So new credit is about 10% of your score. We also call this one inquiries as well. So an inquiry is anytime you request to have your credit pulled, whether you are applying for a loan or opening a new account, that counts as someone, you're requesting your credit to be looked at there. Having your credit pulled a few times is okay. You just don't want to have it pulled a lot, especially in a short period of time, because whether or not you get the loan, that still counts as an inquiry. Now you might be receiving offers in the mail of, hey, you've been pre-approved for this loan or you've been pre-approved for this credit card, and you say, hey, I didn't request that. Those companies aren't doing a hard pull, what's called, on your credit. You have to go in and actually request to have your credit pulled to count as an inquiry against you. The other ones are more just soft pulls, is kind of what they call there. And then with looking at new credit, so opening a bunch of credit cards, especially in a short time, can hurt your score. Anytime you get a new loan, it can impact this. So let's say you get a new car loan and your score drops slightly and you say, hey, what's going on? I like to refer to it as the Nike swoosh symbol. So when you get a new loan, your score will decrease initially, but as you pay well on it, your score will increase. That can also be where when you do get a new loan, say like an auto loan, and you have the money to pay it off, it doesn't help your score as much if you get the loan and pay it off in 3 or 4 months, right? It will help it even more if you have it at least 6 to 12 months or even a couple of years, so it can show that consistent payment each month. And then this includes retail cards as well. So when you go to different stores, you're going to be getting offers of, hey, sign up for our credit card at this place, sign up for a credit card, or offers in the mail. So in general, just don't apply for new credit unless you need it. Okay, so the last factor is mix of credit. Lenders or the credit bureaus like to see that you can handle different types of credit. One type of credit is a revolving credit. So this is like a credit card or a line of credit, one that you can use and pay back, kind of that revolving account there. Speaking of credit cards, so when you go to a bank or a credit union or financial institution, there's a couple of different cards that are available. There's credit cards and debit cards. Who can tell me the main difference between credit cards and debit cards?
Card comes from your bank account. Your debit card comes from your bank account.
Yes.
Credit card comes from your bank statement.
Exactly. So the debit card, that's pulling money directly from your checking account, right? That's your money. Credit card is the financial institution's money that you are borrowing with a promise to pay back. So yes, that is definitely the biggest difference there. And then in addition to the revolving credit, there's also installment loans. So this would be things like an auto loan, mortgage, personal loan. These type of loans have a set payment for a certain amount of time that you are paying consistently on there. Now, lenders don't expect, especially when you are first starting out and you're going for a loan, they don't expect you to have 5 different credit cards, 2 installment loans, a mortgage. You know, they know that you're just starting out, and so they would be concerned if you had a lot of credit on there as well. So when you are starting out, opening 1, 2 credit cards, managing those well, eventually getting an auto loan, this mix of credit is something that is just going to take time, kind of like the length of credit history as well. So eventually we'll have kind of a well-rounded mix of credit there. Okay, so now I have a video for us to watch that summarizes some of those things we talked about. Oh no, I did test it before. Let's see.
Oh, good.
Yes?
Credit Squirrel, hey, I need some help building my credit score.
Shh. Yes, of course. Come in.
Okay.
Right. Here are 7 ways to build and maintain good credit scores. Number 1. Pay your bills on time. Don't hide them and don't pretend they don't exist. Pay your statement balance in full each month.
That's simple enough.
Number 2. Part of your credit score is based on the length of your credit history. So if you're just starting out, open one credit card and use it for small, regular, manageable payments, like a cell phone bill or gas.
Okay, something I know I can pay off every month.
Indeed. 3. Keep your credit utilization low. This means using only a small portion of your available credit.
I don't think I understand.
Example, If you have $1,000 of credit available and you're using almost all of it each month, it makes you look as though you rely heavily on that credit line. Keeping your utilization down to about 10% keeps your credit score in tip-top shape.
10% utilization. Got it.
4. Don't open a large amount of credit cards in a short time. Lots of inquiries on your credit report within a short time frame makes your score drop. 5. To give your score an extra boost, have a variety of credit. A mix of credit cards, retail cards, utility bills, and installment loans keeps your score balanced.
Nice.
6. Try not to carry a balance. Pay off your statement balance every month.
What if I can't afford to do that?
If you can't afford to pay something off in a month, you probably shouldn't be putting it on a credit card in the first place. A credit card shouldn't be treated like extra income. Budget wisely. Making only the minimum payments each month can get you in trouble very quickly with all the interest you have to pay.
Yikes!
And finally, number 7, monitor your credit. There are free sites that you can use to get a good estimate of your credit score, as well as paid services to access the exact scores.
That's really great. Thank you so much, Credit Squirrel. Once again, you've been incredibly helpful. Oh, I was just getting advice from the Credit Squirrel. He lives in this tree, and, you know what? Never mind. Everybody can go away now.
Okay, so kind of a silly video, but I think it has some really good information. Let's go through these. Okay, so like we talked about, credit is such an important part of your financial future. It can affect more than just getting loans. It can affect future jobs or getting into apartments. So it is important that you are aware of what is on your credit. You can get a free credit report a year from each of those credit bureaus, the Experian, Equifax, TransUnion, by going to annualcreditreport.com. Now, during COVID, they did change that from once a year to weekly. And I did check recently, and that is still available for weekly. So as of right now, you have lots of access to free credit reports. I don't know if that's something that they're changing long term, so it's always available. But for now, you can get weekly free reports. The reports through annualcreditreport.com are not going to have your scores on there, but it will have your report. So it can be a good idea to check that report, make sure everything is accurate. If there's a mistake on there, you can go in and dispute it. You want to make sure there's no fraudulent activity. So it can be a good idea to check those. In the booklet, one of the handouts we have is this breakdown of a credit score. So this just kind of summarizes what we talked about. So some of these are handouts like these, the video, the PowerPoints are some examples that you can use in your classrooms. Yes?
In the previous session,
Yes?
they said that you can check your credit score or your report weekly.
Mm-hmm.
It's become permanent,
Yes.
and then it can check all three agencies.
Yes. So is it through that website? They changed that during COVID. So yes, they are offering weekly free reports.
Annualcreditreport.com.
Yes. Yes. So annualcreditreport.com. So yes, as of now, you can check those reports weekly. You can pull all three credit bureaus at once, the Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, or sometimes people like to stagger them out as well and just check one, couple months, check another one. But trying to check it at least yearly can be a good idea.
My bank
Yes.
has a tab when you log in with your user ID and password, there's
Mhm.
a tab for credit score. And they'll send me an email every month saying your credit score's been updated. And so I can do it for free, I don't have to pay anything. And it's right there when I check my balances.
Yes. Yes, I love that a lot of financial institutions are offering that, especially in the last couple of years. They've realized how, important credit is and how consumers do want access to their credit. So a lot of financial institutions or credit tracking services do offer those free reports, and it's not necessarily that they are pulling your credit each month. It's more getting kind of that soft pull of, okay, this is about what your score is to help you track your score. So yes, definitely check with your financial institution and see if that's something that's available that they offer. Any other questions about credit, of things that you've always wondered or missed that you've heard that you've been curious about? Yes.
We have a homonym we used, remember the names of the three credit reporting agencies?
Yeah.
And it comes from Mr. Lyon here. He's been to Romania and Transylvania.
Uh-huh.
So it's Mr. Lyon is equally for Equifax, Experience for Experian, in Transylvania for TransUnion. So
I love it.
Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Mr. Lyon is equally experienced in
I
Transylvania.
have a slideshow that shows it, and they remember. I don't know if they'll ever need it.
No, but it helps remember when you connect different
Kinda
words
crazy.
like that. So I love that.
It's just a story. Remember, we learned to tell these kids stories.
Uh-huh.
There
Perfect.
you go.
I love that. Thank you. Okay. So the next topic is living on your own. So now that we have a good idea of credit and why it's important, we're next going to be looking at some of the different things to understand when you are considering moving on your own. So I'm going to start with another video.
And I was like, well, you have a birthday party every single year. Of course, my hypothetical housewarming party would take priority.
Yeah, sure.
Hold up. What is this?
Oh, I've seen this before. Actually, Jen, since you're thinking of getting your own place, you should probably play it.
What do you do?
Well, common apartment expenses pop up here, and you pay them by whacking them with this mallet.
That sounds awesome. I'm so ready.
We'll see. It starts off pretty easy with rent.
Piece of cake.
But you have to keep track of utilities and things like cable and internet too.
I get it. Regular budget stuff. This is so easy.
Good, because this is still the practice mode. The actual moving into an apartment mode starts now.
Ah, what is all this stuff?
There's your security deposit and first and last month's rent, since some landlords ask for that. Sometimes a credit or background check is required, and you need to pay for those too. There's a pet deposit, and you can't forget that parking stalls sometimes have an extra fee. Then there's association fees for certain apartment buildings. Oh, and renter's insurance. And that's not counting moving expenses.
Uh-oh.
Moving companies or truck rental or a pizza budget for friends helping out, packing materials like boxes and tape, and the bare necessities of apartment setup like toilet paper, light bulbs, cleaning supplies, utensils, a first aid kit, a toolkit, and we haven't even gotten to furniture yet.
Futon. How did I do?
Well, you missed your pet deposit and your electricity bill, so you'd be living in the dark and you wouldn't have your cat. And judging by your score, it looks like you need to have a lot more than just a couple of months' rent saved up before you make the move.
Why is it doing that?
It's a new month, so some of the expenses from that last round are going to pop up again.
So when does this game actually end?
Oh, Jen, it never ends.
Okay, so many of your students are getting to the age where they are considering moving out on their own, right? But like the video discussed, there's more to it than just paying the monthly rent check. There's also possibly furnishing the new place, renter's insurance, moving costs. So we're going to discuss a number of things for you to consider before you take that leap in moving out on your own. The first thing you'll want to do is to build a budget. A budget is a good way to understand what you can afford, and it'll help you make sense of all those expenses that we talked about that come with your new independence. Budget. Before we go over this, I first want to ask, what are your favorite kinds of pie? Who has a favorite kind of pie?
Key lime,
Key lime. Ooh, that's good.
pumpkin.
Pumpkin. Great. My personal favorite is banana cream pie. I love banana cream pie. So dealing with money is kind of like slicing a pie. The whole pie is your income. So what money do you have coming in? And you have to decide how you are going to cut or slice the pie, which is where your money's going to go. Some things will require a bigger slice, like housing or transportation, or some things will be a smaller slice. Once the pie is all sliced, your money is gone. So if you are starting out with a budget, and you're wondering, okay, I don't even know where to start, something that can help is using a spending ratio. So spending ratios help you evaluate your current spending habits to help you understand what you can and can't afford. Now, ratios can vary a lot, especially depending on your situation. So not everyone's these ratios are going to look exactly the same for everyone. Sometimes there's different things to incorporate, like students. You'll need to consider tuition, books, fees, things like that. So that's something that's not included in this, but what you'll want to incorporate in yours. The main one we're going to focus on today is housing expense. Ideally, housing expense we want to keep to about 30% of your income. So you take your total housing expense, divide that by your monthly take-home income after taxes and everything's been deducted, and ideally we're around 30%. Now, with the housing market the way it is right now, housing market rent likely, especially in Utah, might be a little bit higher than that. If it is, that means some of those other ratios we're going to have to take that out of that. But ideally, if we can stay around 30%, that should be our goal. Now, let's say you find an apartment you love, but it's way outside of your spending ratio. What are some different things that you can do at that point? Any ideas?
Spend less in other areas if that's the most important thing to you.
Yep, spend less in other areas. So if that's important, say, okay, I'm going to give up in some of these areas so I can spend more there.
Increase your income.
Yes, increase income. Any other ideas?
Don't get the apartment.
Don't get the apartment, yes. So maybe decide, you know what, it's too expensive. So yeah, maybe stay with parents. There you go. Have free or cheaper rent. So increase income was mentioned. Is that apartment you found worth working a second job or increasing your hours? That'll be something you have to decide. Maybe you'll want to reconsider your must-haves. So be realistic about your expectations, especially if this is your first time moving out on your own. Do you really need to have all that square footage or the different amenities at different places? Decide, okay, what truly is a must-have and maybe what can I live without? Reduce, like was mentioned, reduce other spending areas. Maybe you can justify a higher housing expense if you reduce in other areas, like maybe moving closer to work or school. You can save on transportation costs or take the bus. And then other ideas, share the space. Maybe find someone who you want to be a roommate with, or sharing the expenses of not only the rent, but utilities as well can help give you access to that dream apartment that you might like, or looking in different locations as well. So maybe saying, okay, that one's too expensive. This city itself is too expensive. Maybe I should look at some other cities for some cheaper prices. Okay, so when we're taking housing expense into consideration, we're looking at more than just the rent payment. There are one-time expenses like first and last month's rent, packing materials, moving expenses, starter furniture, as well as ongoing expenses, utilities, internet, renter's insurance. Maybe the place you have has a security monitoring, or a lot of places now are charging for parking. Is that something that you'll need to pay for? As well as household items, toiletries, things like that. So it is important before moving to come up with a plan to save. So this one here is a rough example of an idea of some of those things we talked about that you might need to save for. So the first one we talked about, first month's rent, right? If you're going to be renting there each month, you need to at least be able to afford the monthly rent payment. That's kind of base what we need. Security deposit. Does that apartment or place that you're looking at require a security deposit? Oftentimes this can be that first month's rent like we talked about, as well as last month's rent. Or they might require a deposit of a couple $100 or a couple $1,000. So finding out what the security deposit is important to know. Do I need to save up for that as well? Background and credit checks. This goes back to when we talked about why credit is so important, because that if they check your credit, that could prevent you from getting into that apartment. So credit checks usually and background checks usually aren't that expensive, but could be something to save an extra $50 or $100 for. Moving costs. Are you going to need to rent a moving truck, or do you have a lot of furniture that you're going to need to move, or maybe you have access to either your own truck or a friend's truck that you're going to be able to use instead? Do you need other supplies like boxes, tape? What kind of moving costs are you going to have? Starter furniture. So some places might come fully furnished, which is great. You won't need furniture right away. Some might come partially furnished. Some might not come furnished at all, and you'll have to provide your own furniture. If that's the case, just make sure you spend it in an amount that you feel comfortable with. And remember that outside of the basics, you don't have to have everything all at once. So you don't have to go out and get bookcases and end tables, bed, couch. I mean, those are more necessities, but some of the furniture, maybe hold off on, look for good deals, or maybe you can even find some good deals at different thrift shops on some of the furniture as well. And then miscellaneous items. So this is making sure you have enough for utility deposits, possibly renter's insurance, and basic cleaning supplies. And like we said, so this is a rough example of some of the things that you might need to save for. It's not necessarily meant to scare you off and say, oh my gosh, how am I going to save that? I'm never going to be able to move out on my own. It's just to help start getting an idea of, okay, these are some of the things that apply to me. Start shopping around for different apartments and see deposits that's required to help give you an idea of how much you'll want to save before you do move. Now I do have another handout in here. This one is the living on your own. So rental agreements and lease. Key questions to ask before you sign. So especially if this is your first apartment and you're moving out on your own and you're shopping around, you might not necessarily know, okay, what are some of the different things I should even look for or ask when I am looking into an apartment. So some of the questions we have on here: rent. How much is rent? Gotta know that and what's included in rent. Utilities. What kind of utilities am I responsible for, or what utilities are included in rent? Looking at the lease term. How long is this, month to month? Is this 6 months? Is this a year? If it is 6 months to a year, what happens if you break the lease? Meaning maybe you need to move out sooner than the lease is sooner than the lease is up. Then you might need to see, okay, does it cost money? Is there a fee for moving out before the lease is over? Am I able to sublease to someone else or sell my contract? So those are some different things to look into. Security deposit. How much is the security deposit, and can I get that security deposit back? Oftentimes, when you do move, that security deposit is refundable. So if you take good care of your apartment and place that you're living in, oftentimes you'll get that security deposit back, which will then help you to be able to move to another one or pay back costs. Now, let's say you leave the apartment in really bad shape, or there's things broken, then they might take some of that security deposit for repairs. Some places are pretty strict in what they say needs repair, so just keep in mind that you might not get that security deposit back, or it might not be the full amount. And then roommates, are you all jointly liable for this place? Or if your roommate doesn't pay rent, does that mean you have to come up with it, or are they looked at separately? Different places look at that differently as well. And pets, are pets allowed as well? So this you can kind of take with you as you are looking at different places to see, okay, what are some of the basic questions that I should be looking at when I'm considering looking into apartments? Okay, and then we have just a couple of minutes left, so we'll do this. Oh, I don't know if you can even see this that well, but this is a little activity that's called Spot the Bad Credit Choices. So now that we've talked about credit, we've looked at, different things. As you are looking over this, if you guys can see it, what are some of the bad credit choices that you're seeing right off?
Is that in here?
No, this one is not printed. If you can't quite see it, I'll try to point some out.
Using in on it at all?
Let me see if I can come out of this, if it'll let me. Maybe if I make this really big.
That helps.
Does that help? Okay, let's look at this top statement. Maybe that will help.
Oh, there you
Okay, so here's the top part of it. Anything you guys seeing on this one?
They've almost used all their credit.
Yes, they've almost used all that credit that's available to them. They have, and their last month, their previous balance was $755. Their total credit available is $1,000. This month it's $989, so they're keeping that higher balance. Yes. Anything else,
What's
guys?
the yellow below payment due date? What
It
is
says last payment overdue, please pay now.
So that's overdue.
Yep, so payment's overdue, so
They have fees, they have fees and interest.
yep, fees. So in interest, meaning they haven't paid off their balance in full, so now they're having to be charged interest, possibly late fees they have on there.
Cash advances.
Cash advances, yes. So cash advance, meaning they don't have enough funds maybe in their checking account and need to pull money off their credit card. Perfect. Let me pull this up. You can kind of see some of their other transactions. Yeah, so maybe not making the best financial choices, especially if they're already, maxed out on their cards and it's coming to the end of the month too, and they're spending things on
Yeah.
fake jewels.
There's an overlimit
Due
fee.
Over limit fee, yes.
Truffles,
What was that?
what they're buying, they don't need.
Yes, so maybe
The
buying things they don't
truffles.
need.
Pizza, maybe we can figure out something else.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think you guys caught most of them there. But hopefully this presentation has given you a better idea of looking at the true cost of independence, both on why credit is important, especially in, moving on and looking at moving on your own as well. Now, these resources are available. There is in here the QR code, so if you do want either this specific presentation or other financial topics as well, feel free to go to the website. It is free to use. You just have to register an account. So, any final questions for me today?
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Appreciate it.